This is the first part of a series of videos on dividing complex numbers. So the first thing that we want to think about when dividing complex numbers is the idea of a complex conjugate. And then you may have studied something similar with square roots before. But the idea of a complex conjugate is we say that the complex conjugate of a plus bi is a minus bi. So for an example, if we have 3 plus 7i, the complex conjugate will be 3 minus 7i. So what you do is you change the sign of the second, or not the second, the term with the imaginary number in it. So for example, if it was 5 minus 6i, the complex conjugate would be 5 plus 6i. And another example, if it was minus 10 plus 2i, the complex conjugate would be minus 10 minus 2i. Now notice, it's only the imaginary term that changes. So figuring out what the complex conjugate is fairly straightforward. Let's think about why it's used. So what we want to do is we have a problem. It's two parts. We want to find the complex conjugate. So we're going to find the complex conjugate and then multiply. So let's do an example. Let's have 6 minus 3i. Well, first step, the complex conjugate of 6 minus 3i will be 6 plus 3i. So the complex conjugate is 6 minus 3i. Is 6. So if you have 6 minus 3i, the complex conjugate is 6 plus 3i. Now watch what happens when we multiply these two together. Then you have a FOIL problem. So you go first times first. 6 times 6 is 36. That's the F. Then you have O. Outside, 6 times 3i would be an 18i. And then an I. 3i times 6, but it's a negative 3i times 6 is a minus 18i. And then last, F-O-I-L, last would be negative 3i, and 3i would be a minus 9i squared. Let's combine like terms. If you notice, there's an 18i and a negative 18i, so those two cancel. So you have 36 minus 9i squared. And remember, I squared is equal to minus 1. So since I squared is equal to minus 1, then you have 36 minus 9 times minus 1, or 36 plus 9, or 45. So what you find out is the product of a complex conjugate, of a complex number and its conjugate, will always be a real number. Let's do another example. So we want to multiply 7 plus 2i by its complex conjugate. So you have 7 plus 2i. The complex conjugate will be 7 minus 2i. And then what you're going to do is you're going to FOIL it. So then that's first, outside, inside, and last. First is 7 times 7 is 49. Outside is 7 times a negative 2i would be a minus 14i. The I, the inside, would be 2i times 7, that's a plus 14i. And then the last is 2i times a negative 2i, which would be a negative 4i squared. That's your first step. You just you find the complex conjugate and FOIL them. The next step is that you combine like terms. So this and this cancel, right? Because it's negative 14i and 14i. You have 49 minus 4i squared. And then you have 49 minus 4 times a negative 1, which is a 49 plus 4, right? Because a negative times a negative is a positive, which is 53. And what you'll notice is every time you multiply a term by its complex conjugate, you always get a real number. Now that's how you find complex conjugates. Now how do we use them? That's the next video. We might have a problem that's called simplify 3i over 5 minus 2i. And that's where we're going to start on the next video.